He said just 6 words. And in that moment, everything inside me sank. My gut knew before my brain caught up. Words are powerful, not just because of what they mean, but because of when they're said, how they're said, and why they're repeated when something feels off. If you've ever left a conversation feeling more confused than when it started, this video is for you. You see, cheating doesn't always start in the bedroom. It often starts in the subtle shifts, the silence between texts, your overreactings, and yes, in 6 specific words that cheaters use, like shields. These aren't just random phrases, they're patterns. Patterns used by men who are hiding something. They're designed to deflect, to blame shift, and to buy more time without accountability. And when you hear them, you might brush them off until they start echoing in your head at 3 a.m. In the next few minutes, I'm going to break down these 6 words one by one, not just what they are, but what they really mean beneath the surface. You'll see how these phrases connect to deeper manipulation tactics and emotional cover-ups. So if you've been doubting yourself, second-guessing your instincts, or trying to not seem crazy, pause, breathe. You're not imagining it. Because once you hear these 6 words and understand their real intent, you won't unsee the truth again. Let's get into it. Most people think cheating is just a physical act. But the emotional groundwork starts long before anyone steps outside the relationship. And it almost always begins with language. When a man is cheating or emotionally checked out, his words become more strategic, less about honesty, more about survival. He's not necessarily trying to hurt you. He's trying to protect the double life he's built. That means saying just enough to keep your suspicion low, while subtly shifting blame, avoiding accountability, and controlling the narrative. The specific phrases become his tools, not because they're true, but because they're useful. Cheaters often rely on emotionally loaded, but logically empty statements. Things that sound like explanations but really just muddy the water. He wants to keep you second-guessing yourself, because as long as you're confused, you're less likely to confront him or dig deeper. Think about it. If he says something like, "You're being dramatic," it instantly makes you the problem. You go from feeling suspicious to feeling guilty for even bringing it up. That's not a coincidence. That's manipulation through language. Cheaters also tend to lean on phrases that imply distance. It's not a big deal. You're reading too much into it. Why don't you trust me? All of these put the spotlight back on you, making you the one who has to defend yourself, rather than him explaining the shady behavior. And here's the deeper layer most people miss. These phrases aren't always rehearsed. Over time, they become instinctual. Because once a man learns that certain words can shut down confrontation, he'll keep using them. It's a form of emotional conditioning, training you to doubt your intuition. That's why identifying these patterns is so important. It's not just about catching a cheater. It's about waking up to how someone might be using words to quietly chip away at your confidence and clarity. When someone loves you, their words are honest, not evasive. They want to calm your fears, not cause more confusion. If you're constantly walking on eggshells because of how he phrases things, that's not love. That's manipulation. The first phrase you need to pay attention to is, "You're overthinking it." At first glance, it sounds innocent, maybe even caring, like he's trying to soothe your anxiety or help you calm down. But listen carefully, because this phrase is one of the most common tools used by someone who doesn't want you asking the right questions. When a man says you're overthinking it, what he's often really saying is, stop thinking about it altogether. He wants to shut down your train of thought before it leads somewhere dangerous, like the truth. This phrase is designed to make you question you. It subtly implies that your intuition, your observations, and your gut feelings are all invalid. And the more you hear it, the more you start to internalize that message. You begin to wonder, am I being too sensitive? Am I reading into things? Maybe I am the problem. That's exactly the point. Cheaters and emotionally unavailable partners in general don't want deep conversations. They want peace on the surface, while chaos brews underneath. So when something doesn't add up, when his story changes, when his behavior shifts, when his attention fades, he uses this phrase to gaslight you without sounding aggressive. Because let's be real, if he had nothing to hide, why wouldn't he want to talk things through? Why would he instantly label your concern as overthinking? A man who values your peace of mind will never make you feel guilty for needing clarity. Overthinking becomes a shield. It helps him delay the fallout, avoid consequences, and keep you in a loop of self-doubt. And over time, it chips away at your confidence. You start ignoring your instincts. You start giving him the benefit of the doubt, even when the evidence is right in front of you. But here's the truth. Most women don't overthink. They sense. There's a difference between paranoia and intuition. Intuition comes from patterns, from subtle shifts in energy, from emotional detachment that doesn't match the words being spoken. You're not crazy for noticing that he suddenly guards his phone. You're not wrong for feeling distance even when he's sitting next to you. And you're definitely not overthinking if something feels off and isn't being addressed. That phrase is more than a dismissal. It's a distraction from the truth. And once you learn to recognize it for what it truly is, the defense mechanism, not a resolution, you'll start trusting your gut again. The second phrase to look out for is, I just want you to be happy. At first, this sounds sweet, almost selfless. It's the kind of thing you'd expect someone who truly cares about you to say. But in the wrong context, this phrase is one of the most effective emotional deflection tactics a cheating or emotionally manipulative man can use. Let's break this down. When a man says, I just want you to be happy, during a moment of conflict, or when you're questioning the relationship, what he's often doing is stepping out of the line of fire without answering anything. He's removing himself from responsibility. He's subtly saying, your feelings are your problem, not mine. It sounds like he's being noble, but what he's really doing is avoiding accountability. This phrase becomes especially suspicious when you voice concerns, brought up inconsistencies, or ask for emotional transparency. And instead of addressing your points directly, he flips the focus back to your happiness. Not as a solution, but as an escape route. In many cases, cheaters use this phrase right before emotionally distancing themselves. It's a soft exit, a way to silence your concerns while making themselves look like the good guy. They want to paint the picture that they're doing the mature thing, that they're letting go out of love. But in reality, they're just dodging a difficult conversation they don't want to have. It's also emotionally manipulative because it puts the pressure on you to make the next move. If you continue pressing for answers, you risk looking like the one who's never satisfied. And if you back off, well, now he doesn't have to explain anything. It's a win-win for him and a lose-lose for you, especially if you're the kind of person who always wants to see the good in someone. Here's the truth. People who genuinely care about your happiness don't just say it, they show it through honesty, through communication, through consistency. They don't use your happiness as a convenient way to exit a conversation that makes them uncomfortable. This phrase often surfaces when a man's guilt is catching up to him. He knows he's wrong. He knows something's off. But instead of admitting it, he shifts the emotional weight back onto you. Suddenly, it's not about what he did, it's about what you want. And in that shift, your pain gets bypassed. So the next time you hear, I just want you to be happy, listen to what's not being said. Is he trying to end a real conversation? Is he avoiding the truth? Or is he using your emotions to cover his own tracks? Because real love doesn't hide behind pretty words. Next up, phrase 3, the one that turns your reality upside down. And if you've ever felt like you're going crazy in a relationship, this one will explain exactly why. The third phrase you need to watch out for is this one, that never happened. It might be the most dangerous phrase of them all, because this is where cheating stops being just about actions and starts becoming psychological warfare. This is gaslighting, plain and simple. When a man says that never happened, he's not just denying the facts, he's denying your reality. He's trying to rewrite history in real time. And if he says it with confidence, with a straight face, and enough repetition, you might even start to believe him. Gaslighting is a manipulation tactic used to make you question your memory, your perception, and eventually your sanity. It's not just lying, it's erasing. He's erasing moments that made you feel hurt, confused, or suspicious. He's minimizing the things he said, the actions he took, and the energy you felt when something was clearly wrong. Think about how disorienting that is. You confront him about a flirty message you saw, a conversation you clearly remember, or a comment he made that crossed a line, and he responds that never happened. No explanation, no discussion, just total denial. And suddenly you're the one backpedaling, wondering if maybe you misunderstood, maybe you are too emotional, maybe it didn't happen the way you remember. but deep down, you know it did. This phrase is powerful because it places the blame back on you, while allowing him to escape without consequences. It keeps him clean while making you feel messy. And over time, it breaks you down. Women in gaslighting relationships often report feeling like they're going crazy. They lose trust in their own judgment. They begin to second guess everything, not just about him, but about themselves. That's the long-term effect of being told again and again that your truth isn't real. Here's the thing, someone who truly loves you won't try to erase your feelings or memories just to avoid taking responsibility. A healthy man will say, I don't remember it that way, but let's talk about it, not shut it down with, that never happened. So if you find yourself constantly defending things you know to be true, if you're keeping mental notes or saving screenshots just to feel like you're not crazy, that's not a relationship. That's psychological manipulation. This phrase isn't just a red flag, it's a blaring siren, because once someone starts rewriting your reality, it becomes harder and harder to leave. That's how control works, not through chains, but through confusion. If you've ever walked away from an argument feeling more lost than heard, ask yourself, is he protecting the relationship or just protecting himself? Next up is phrase 4, and this one's tricky because it comes wrapped in vulnerability. But don't be fooled, it's one of the oldest tricks in the book for avoiding responsibility while pulling on your heartstring. That fourth phrase to watch for is, I can't do anything right. At first it sounds like a moment of vulnerability, like he's being hard on himself, frustrated, maybe even remorseful. But don't be fooled, this phrase is one of the most manipulative tools in emotional deflection. It's not about taking responsibility. It's about avoiding it while making you feel guilty for even asking for more. This is classic victim play. When you bring up something that's bothering you, whether it's his distant behavior, his shady texts, or the growing lack of communication, and his response is, I can't do anything right, what he's doing is flipping the emotional script. Suddenly you're not talking about his actions anymore. You're comforting him instead. It's a subtle but powerful move. Now you're the one backtracking. You start reassuring him. No, that's not what I meant, you say. You're not a bad person. And before you know it, the original issue is buried beneath his need to be consoled. The spotlight has shifted again from accountability to sympathy. And here's the kicker. If he's cheating or hiding something, this phrase becomes a get-out-of-jail-free card, because as long as he looks hurt, broken, or misunderstood, you're less likely to press him for answers. You don't want to kick him when he's down, right? But that's exactly the emotional trap. Cheaters who use this phrase know they're crossing lines. They just don't want to deal with the consequences. So instead of facing your questions, they weaponize self-pity. It gives them a false sense of moral high ground. I'm trying, and you're never satisfied. It paints you as the aggressor, even if all you did was ask for the truth. And if you're someone with a big heart, a nurturing personality, or a tendency to see the good in people, this phrase hits hard. Because your instinct is to help, to heal, to make it better. But that's exactly why it works. It exploits your empathy. Here's the truth. Real vulnerability isn't defensive. It doesn't erase your pain. Just to highlight theirs. A man who truly feels remorse will lean in and say, I know I messed up. Let's talk about it. Not shut down the conversation with a pity party. So the next time you hear, I can't do anything right, pause. Don't get swept up in the drama. Ask yourself, is this an honest moment or emotional manipulation in disguise? Because in healthy relationships, both people are allowed to express pain. Both people take responsibility, and both people fight for each other, not just for the upper hand in the moment. Up next, phrase #5, the one that seems casual, even dismissive, but underneath, it's pure avoidance and a major red flag when trust is already fragile. The fifth phrase to pay attention to is, can we not do this right now? It sounds simple, maybe even reasonable, especially if it's said during a tense moment. But when this phrase keeps showing up, every time you try to have a serious conversation, it's no longer about timing. It's about dodging accountability. Let's be clear, there's a difference between needing space to calm down and using space as a shield. When a man consistently says, can we not do this right now? What he's often saying underneath is, I don't want to answer for what I did. It's a stall tactic, a way to shut down the conversation without ever actually addressing it. And if you're with someone who's hiding something like emotional infidelity, texting someone behind your back, or worse, this phrase becomes a favorite weapon. It buys him time, it gives him control, and it puts the burden back on you to either escalate things and risk being labeled dramatic or back off and wait. And the longer you wait, the more emotional ground he gains. You start to question your timing, your tone, your right to even bring it up. You wonder if you should have waited for a better moment. But guess what? With a man who doesn't want to be held accountable, there is no right moment. He'll always be too tired, too busy, too stressed, or just not in the mood. And slowly, the relationship becomes a one-way street where your concerns go unheard and unresolved. This phrase also creates emotional exhaustion. You keep circling the same issues, never landing on closure. And that's not by accident, it's by design. Because unresolved issues keep you emotionally off balance while keeping him in control of the narrative. A man who values the relationship, even when things are messy, won't avoid the hard conversations. He might say, "I need a moment to think," or "Let's talk about this in an hour." That's fair. That's healthy. But if, "Can we not do this right now?" is his go-to every time you get close to the truth. He's not buying time to reflect. He's buying time to escape. It's especially telling when this phrase pops up right after you catch him in a lie or confront him with evidence. He doesn't deny it. He doesn't clarify. He just wants the conversation to stop immediately. Because silence keeps secrets safe. But here's what you deserve. Someone who doesn't avoid the fire, but meets you in it. Someone who understands that growth comes from confrontation, not silence. Someone who says, "Okay, let's talk," even when it's uncomfortable. So the next time you hear, "Can we not do this right now?" ask yourself, is he trying to preserve the relationship or just protect himself? Coming up next, phrase #6. It's the one that sounds like love, but might be the biggest lie of them all. The sixth phrase to look out for is "maybe we're just not meant to be." On the surface, it sounds like heartbreak, like someone who's finally being honest, letting go, or facing reality. But when this phrase shows up in the middle of tension, especially after you bring up concerns, suspicions, or ask for honesty, it's often not about resolution. It's about passive-aggressively checking out without taking real responsibility. This phrase is a masterclass in emotional manipulation. Why? Because it cloaks avoidance in a veil of truth. It sounds deep. It sounds thoughtful. But really, it's a way of shutting down the conversation without actually answering the problem. When a man says, "Maybe we're just not meant to be," he's not necessarily ending the relationship. He's floating the idea out there, testing the emotional waters. He's saying something vague and heavy that leaves you scrambling to fix it. It's an emotional threat disguised as resignation. And it puts the weight of the moment entirely on your shoulders. Now, instead of addressing the behavior, like why he's being distant, texting someone else, or avoiding your questions, you're now focused on saving the relationship. You start pleading, reassuring him, offering compromises. And that's exactly what he wanted, for you to shift the energy from holding him accountable to trying to hold on to him. It's also a convenient way to avoid explaining anything. Think about it. When someone cheats, emotionally disconnects, or breaks trust, they should be the one offering clarity, remorse, and a desire to fix things. But instead, this phrase flips the script. It makes it sound like the relationship is failing due to some tragic fate, not because of their choices. It's passive-aggressive because it offers no real closure. He's not saying, "I want to end this." He's not saying, "Let's fix this." He's saying something in the middle, vague enough to avoid commitment, but heavy enough to leave you in emotional limbo. And that space, that's where control lives. When you're emotionally invested, this kind of statement can crush you. It makes you feel like the connection is slipping away, and it's somehow your fault. You'll ask yourself, what am I doing wrong? How can I prove we are meant to be? But it was never about meant to be. It was about not wanting to face the truth. A man who truly loves you doesn't drop bombs like that in the middle of conflict. He fights for clarity, not confusion. He leans in even when things get hard. He says, "Let's figure this out." Not, maybe this was never right. So the next time you hear, maybe we're just not meant to be, stop and ask yourself, is he trying to be honest or just trying to walk away without being the bad guy? Because love isn't passive, and real men don't disappear behind vague exits. They show up even when it's hard. Up next, we tie it all together. Let's talk about how to respond when you hear any of these phrases and reclaim your power. So what should you do if you hear any or several of these phrases? First, pause and breathe, because the most important thing to remember is this: you are not crazy and you are not overreacting. These phrases didn't make you feel uncomfortable by accident. Your intuition picked up on something, and in relationships, intuition is your most powerful guide. When someone consistently uses phrases that dodge, deflect, or distort the truth, what they're really doing is trying to control the emotional narrative. They want to make you question the issue and eventually question yourself. That's how manipulation works. It doesn't attack you directly. It confuses you. It exhausts you. It gets you to silence yourself over time. So the first thing you must do is trust what you felt, not just what was said, but how it made you feel in your body. The tension, the unease, that moment when your gut whispered, something isn't right. Honor that feeling. Second, stop chasing clarity from someone who benefits from your confusion. If he's using these phrases repeatedly, chances are he knows exactly what he's doing. And the more you try to reason, explain, or convince, the more power you give away. Cheaters and manipulators thrive when you doubt yourself and fight for their approval. Instead, create emotional distance. Not silence out of punishment, but space for clarity. When you stop reacting to manipulation, you start regaining control. You begin to see patterns. You stop fighting for a version of the relationship that doesn't exist. Third, start asking better questions. Not to him, but to yourself. Questions like, am I constantly apologizing for asking for the truth? Do I leave conversations feeling more confused than heard? Is my peace being sacrificed for the illusion of love? And most importantly, do I feel safe being emotionally honest in this relationship? Because if you don't, if honesty, vulnerability, or concern always turns into a debate, a guilt trip, or a disappearing act, then you're not in a relationship. You're in survival mode. And that is not love. Lastly, know that walking away doesn't mean you lost. It means you refuse to lose yourself. You can love someone and still leave. You can want answers and still realize you deserve better, even if they never give them to you. Your worth is not measured by how much chaos you can survive. It's measured by how deeply you trust yourself when something feels wrong, and how bravely you walk away when it stays wrong. If you've heard any of these 6 phrases and you felt dismissed, gaslit, or manipulated, it's not in your head. It's in your heart. And your heart deserves honesty, not confusion. So protect your peace, speak your truth, and never settle for someone who hides behind words instead of standing beside you with them. Because you deserve more than just clever phrases. You deserve real love. As we wrap up, let's focus on one key takeaway. You are worthy of respect, clarity, and honesty in every relationship you're in. The phrases we've discussed today, the ones that gaslight, deflect, manipulate, and emotionally exhaust you, are not just warning signs. They are signals that something deeper needs to change. And that change begins with you. Reclaiming your power starts by recognizing your worth and trusting yourself again. It's about knowing that no matter how much you love someone, no matter how long you've been together, you deserve to feel safe, heard, and valued. Your feelings, your experiences, and your voice matter. It's easy to get swept up in the storm of someone else's words, especially when you want to believe the best in them. But real love isn't about walking on eggshells, second-guessing your intuition, or constantly chasing validation. It's about mutual respect, open communication, and the freedom to express your needs without fear of manipulation. If any of these phrases have made you question your reality, your worth, or your sanity, take a step back. Trust that the truth always comes to light, even if it doesn't happen on your timeline. And remember, the best way to reclaim your power is to stop letting anyone else define your truth. You deserve a relationship where you feel safe and supported. So if you're hearing these phrases, take action. Take a step towards reclaiming your inner peace. And most importantly, trust yourself to make the choices that align with the love and respect you deserve. You've got this.